good to be with you here today, and I'm blessed. My wife Donna and my boys are with me here today. It's actually the 4th anniversary of the passing of my father-in-law, who died during COVID, so we're remembering him in our hearts in a special way. As I looked at this reading, and I started thinking about how I would preach on it, sometimes when I'm sitting over there with Father Tom, things change. And the first thing that came out of me as I looked around, I saw so many of the wonderful folks who minister to our engaged couples in our marriage ministry. We have a beautiful retreat weekend that we do up at the school gym and then here at church, where the couples come in and just, spend a day and a half really focusing on their faith and on their relationships and on, getting a better sense of who they are and how they might, engage with one another going forward. It's very beautiful and very helpful. We have so many couples here, the Bells, the Reardons, the Sultans, Marielle Leah's here, who for so many years was so faithful with her husband Dan in doing the food and the hospitality. And it's such an important ministry. We're also overjoyed to participate in it. Because marriage is so important. It's such a beautiful institution. It's the domestic church, right? And so weddings, of course, are joyful times. When we have weddings in this church, it's a blast. There's no sorrow. Maybe there's a couple of tears from maybe the father of the bride when he's going to pay for the reception, but for everybody else, it's a pretty good day. It's so beautiful. It's such a hopeful moment. Everybody is at their best in those moments. Brides are beautiful. Grooms are handsome. Nothing can go wrong, right? Except if you're at this most famous of all weddings, the wedding of Cana. And at this wedding, you might say, well, this doesn't seem like a big deal, right? But it's a huge deal. Because as they're going through this party, which goes on for days, because back then the wedding wasn't just a few hour reception, it went on for days. And they ran out of wine. And so the couple are mortified. And they don't want anybody to find out that they didn't order enough food, that they didn't order enough wine to satisfy their guests. It's going to be a public humiliation for them. And so what happens here? That's the backstory. But what happens here? Mother Mary, always attentive to the needs of the people, right? So she sees what's going on. She loves this couple. We don't know who they are, but obviously they're close enough to invite Mary and Jesus. And so she goes to Jesus and she says, they're running out of wine. They have no wine. And Jesus' response is very, very interesting, isn't it? He says, woman, how does your concern affect me? My hour has not yet come. But there's a couple of things to understand about that. First of all, that sounds a little harsh at first when he says woman. Like, who addresses their mother that way? But that's actually a pretty poor translation. Understand that what he's really saying is my mother, my dear mother. And we know that from tradition, but we also know that from the Gospel of John itself. Because remember the next time that Jesus uses those words on the cross, as he looks down upon his dear mother, he says, woman, behold your son, to the beloved disciple John. Then he says to John, he says, behold your mother. So it's such a beautiful term of endearment, but what Jesus is really saying is, Mom, I'm not ready to reveal myself to the world quite yet. But in addition to being the Son of God, he's also the Son of Mary. And so he's going to do what his mother asks, as every good son does. Maybe you don't want to do it, maybe you drag your feet, but if Mom asks you to do something, my boys know this, you do it. And Mary knows that. She knows Jesus more better than anyone ever has or ever will. So when Jesus says, what is that concern of mine? My hour hasn't come. She's like, she doesn't even respond to him. It's remarkable. She just turns to the servants and she says, what? The best advice we'll ever get Do whatever he tells you to do. My brothers and sisters, if you wanted to know the application for everything you ever hear in church, once you hear the theology, you've just heard the application. Do whatever he tells you to do. And what is he telling you to do? Because that's an easy thing to say, but what does it actually mean? It means this. It means following Jesus. It means living like Jesus. It means loving like Jesus. It means being like these servants in the gospel. These anonymous servants. Because what happens with them? They get this wonderful advice, this wonderful instruction from Mary. Do whatever he tells you to do. And what do? Jesus says, fill the water pots up. And they fill them up. No questions asked. But actually, they do more than that. Because notice what it says. They filled them to the brim. They didn't just go through the motions. They didn't just do the bare minimum. They went the extra mile. Out of love for Jesus, out of love for Mary, but also out of love for that couple. Out of love for the people who came to the wedding feast. They were fulfilling, whether they realized it in the moment or not, the great commandment. To love God with all their heart, mind, soul, and strength. And to love their neighbor as yourself. That's what it always comes down to, my brothers and sisters. That's what it always comes down to. We complicate this so much. We read these stories, we try to ferret out some nugget of truth or whatever, but that's it in a nutshell. We're called to love God with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength, to have a personal relationship with Jesus, and then we're called to go forth and to love one another as he has loved us all the way. It's so beautiful and so important. But what does that look like? What do we do? Where do we live? Where do we go? We all wonder, we scratch our heads, we say, what are we going to do with our lives? What does it all mean? It's going to look different for each one of us. The Lord has made us each unique. We're created in his image and likeness, but we're unique. We're different. And that's the beauty. You don't have to be like everybody else. We're not clones. Or like St. Therese said, we're all just little flowers in a garden. But we're all beautiful. We bloom differently, with different colors and different shapes and different sizes. So you do whatever you want. But always do it in accordance with this test. Am I loving God? And am I loving my neighbor? In everything I do. Does what I do honor God? Does what I do make the world a better place? Because if it's just one of those things, it doesn't work. It's not just about coming to church and saying your prayers and thinking you're a very pious and holy person. You have to go back, leave this place. We're going to send you forth from this place at the end with your water pot filled to the brim. Bring it out into the world in love. Pour it out. Take that water pot. As soon as you leave this place, start pouring it out into the hearts of everyone you meet. You'll be such a blessing to everyone around you. Now, there's a moral of this story. I think we can take a million lessons away from it, but let me try one. It's really, really important. Pray with Mary. Stay close to her. You know, of course, we can bring our hopes, our dreams, our joys and sorrows directly to the Lord Jesus, and we ought to do that. But how often do you go out into the world and say, hey, would you pray for this? Would you pray for that? Would you pray for me? Would you pray for my kids? Would you pray for my job? Whatever it is. You ask people you love, you put it on Facebook, whatever. Pray, I'm praying. Yeah. But why not pray to the one who is closer to Jesus than anyone else? Why not pray to the one who asks you to join your heart to her immaculate heart so that she can bring you and your concerns to the throne of her son Jesus, just like those newlyweds? Jesus isn't going to refuse her. I'm looking over at my friend Fran right now. She knows it's better than anyone. Her life has been a devotion to our Blessed Mother for so long, and for Lynn as well, and they can tell you all about the miracles that have happened in their lives and the lives around them through the intercession of Our Lady. So pray with Mary, and listen to what she has to say to you, because she has to say one thing to you. It's the last word she actually says in the Bible. Do whatever he tells you to do. And then go forth from this place, from wherever you are, and live your lives. But live them in the light of the love of Jesus. And live them with a desire over everything else. Be a blessing to everyone around you by sharing the love of Jesus and the love of Mary with the world.